Beyond the Leash. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Frank.
And we are two dog trainers that are going to be talking about life, dog training, and everything in between.
We hopefully you enjoy this. We look forward to it. We're going to really talk about things that are passionate to us. So that will include dogs, family, life, business, and I guess Nicole and I we'll start with introducing ourselves.
So I'm Nicholle. I've been training dogs for 8-9 years now. And Frank and I met through my boyfriend. And I started working for Frank, last year?
Yep. Yeah, last year. Very fortunate to get you. Very fortunate to have you.
Very fortunate that you took me on.
Well, you're great. So when I got to meet Nicole, she had been her boyfriend had worked with us years ago. We worked together years ago, and they had a business together. And when he had moved on, and you guys closed the business,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. So explain that.
So we were training. We had our own dog training business. He was getting close to retiring from the NYPD. COVID hit. So we both decided that it was best to close the business down. I was working in property management as well. So, it played out for both of us. It worked well. But then I realized that, I liked dog training a little bit better than that. And so I didn't want to start up the company again because he was busy. I didn't want to do it on my own. So I reached out to Frank. Well, actually, Susan was talking to her about it. And she's like, come work for Frank. And so we got in contact. And then that's that.
Yeah, and then the first time, so I had met you guys I met you when you were first dating, but you weren't a dog trainer at that point.
No.
And then, Eric started the company and you guys worked together for years. And when you showed up to our group class for the first time, it was, really getting to see who you are as a trainer, where you are, what you're doing. And you showed up and we had a client who came in and was handling the dog wrong. And I was really about to open my mouth and tell them what to do. And Nicole said, listen, you're handling the dog wrong this way. And what you're actually doing is you're making things worse. And and then she stepped back, looked at me and went, I'm sorry. I'm like, nope, you're hired. Like, because you said everything I was about to say. So
Yeah.
it was great. It was really great to see what I had taught Eric passed down and have him pass it down a generation to you, and then have you do it so well, even though we'd never met before, and you were a perfect fit.
He was honestly a great teacher. He taught me the ins and outs of dog training, anywhere from just your pet hyper dog to aggressive dogs, like extremely aggressive dogs that want to bite everybody's heads off. So, funny story, when I was a child, I was extremely afraid of dogs.
Really?
Was deathly afraid of dogs. Like, I would run and scream and cry and hide from them. Any dog that was bigger than me, at least. I was a small child. But this, always loved animals, though, and he kind of opened that world to where, you don't need to be afraid of them. He taught me how to be stronger in a sense that, face your fear. And once I got bit by a dog, I got bit in my face, or on my face.
That's scary. That's terrifying.
From a dog that we had that he was training. And it jumped up, nabbed me right under my eye, had a black eye for about a week and a half. And that actually made me want to do this even more.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the worst bite you've ever gotten?
That was the worst bite I ever got. The other bite, I've only had 2 bites. Well, we're not going to count my dog biting me when I was trying to cut her nails. She nabbed my finger. It wasn't bad. It was just a surface wound.
The thing about being a trainer is we're not exempt from real world problems.
Yeah.
At all.
Just like therapists have the worst children and the worst family lives, sometimes we have the worst dogs.
But we take on the worst dogs, that's for sure.
That's for sure. No, the face bite was the worst bite. The other bite that I had was breaking up a dog fight. I was home alone. We had these 2 dogs that we were training, they would get along great. And then all of a sudden one day they just got into a fight, and I had to break up two dogs fighting and going at it by myself. I thought the blood was mine. Honestly, there was a handprint like on the door, and I was like, where am I bleeding? It was the dog. The dog ended up being, both of them were perfectly fine. We just kept them separated after that, unless we were going on structured walks or doing things. But they weren't allowed to have free time or play together anymore because I was not putting myself in that situation, which really sucked because we had them for months. They were rescue dogs, and they got along great for months and months. And then one day, one of them just pissed the other one off, and they went at it, and then that was a done deal.
Wow, yeah.
But they nabbed me on the leg pretty bad. I had a gnarly bruise on my leg. Thank goodness, like the tights, the compression workout pants that I was wearing, they saved me, because that would have been like in my thigh.
Sure, that's pretty terrible. Yeah. It's, I think the worst by far.
Yeah, your worst fight.
My worst fight was right in the privates.
Of course.
Frank and Beans, so to speak. And I never knew that your privates and your chin were connected, but apparently they are. Because when we were doing, there was another person, he was a trainer, and we were doing call-offs, and with his dog, Bandit. Mm-hmm. And with the irony of, we were newer in training, the first, 3-4 years, and I didn't have a bite suit yet, but I had 2 bite suits on order from Ray Allen. Those were my first bite suits with Ray Allen. Big, puffy, whatever, and they were on order. They were due to arrive the following week, of course. And so we're doing call-offs, and with the sleeve, and we did like 2 or 3 call-offs in a row, and then gave him a bite. And then we went to do the 4th call-off, and all of a sudden, I saw the dog's eyes go from the sleeve down.
Oh.
And he had him. We were working on. Dog had a remote collar on, but also had like a 25-foot leash, and I was at the end of the 25-foot. So he yelled no and hit the collar simultaneously, and I pressed down. I tried to compress down with the sleeve, but it wasn't. Neither one of us were fast enough, and it was a bang and a release. It was like bang, release. But that was enough. And my girlfriend at the time was there, and I went in the back room to check things out, and she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I don't know." She's like, "I'm not kidding. Neither am I. I literally don't know." Yeah. Because I could feel everything here. Excuse me, I had gi burn today for jiu-jitsu. Sorry about that. But I could feel everything here, but anything below here, all the way down to my toes, I couldn't feel. It was for about half an hour. It was the weirdest thing. Like I was literally doing this to myself. I could feel nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was terrifying. So that was the worst bite by far. Took a few weeks to know that everything was working as it should again. So we were happy about that. It's very, very scary. Very, very scary.
Did you go to the doctors?
I didn't. I was, young trainer and didn't have medical insurance at the time. And it was, I think, only a total of 3 punctures, but 3 punctures is bad. Yeah. So, but it wound up being okay. And yeah. So it was okay. That was terrifying. So I've been bitten a bunch of times, and this is my bite hand. This is the hand that always gets bit. This will be my arthritis hand. I can feel it as I'm getting older.
Yeah.
My right hand. So, but yeah, definitely. It's this hand and there. That's been the worst by far.
Sounds fun. Sounds like
very exciting.
Worse than walking with a black eye and wearing sunglasses in the grocery store, or people looking at you.
Everyone's like, be a dog trainer. It's great. You get to play with dogs all day long. It's like it's exactly like that, right?
It'll be fun, they said.
Yeah, it'll be fun, they said. It's great.
So, with that, what is the hardest part for you, or what do you think is the hardest part about being a dog trainer?
I think that varies. So there's for me, and there's overall. So for me, it gets old and a lot of dog trainers feel this, it gets old when people, especially in the beginning, when people don't follow your advice. You know what you did, you studied for a long time, you worked hard, you've trained hundreds of dogs in the beginning, and now it's thousands upon thousands. And people hire you, you tell them what you can do, you tell them how you're going to do it. They hire you, either in-home training or board and train. And then with the in-homes, either they don't practice or the board and trains after you've done all the work, they go, well, I don't want to do it that way. It's like, well, I told you what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, what tools I was going to use. The dog will do it to the point where we've been challenged with this. And I've handed, like when we had group classes, I've handed trained dogs to like 9 and 10-year-old girls who never met the dog before. Of course, dogs that are safe. And let them handle the dog in front of the owner. And the girl had never met, or sometimes occasionally a little boy. They never met the dog before, but they knew our system. They know how to train it. And we teach training as a language, which I guess we'll discuss another day. But once they spoke the language, and I don't mean the words, how the tools are used, then the dog responded to them. The dog responded to them very well. And I'm like, well, you can do what the 9-year-old who's never met your dog can do, and your dog's off leash for them, or you can do whatever non-sensory you're doing and have the crappy results that you have. Choice is yours.
Yeah, I agree completely. That is the hardest part, or one of the hardest parts is getting people to listen to you. Like, you're paying me and you hired me for my expertise, but then you're telling me I'm doing it wrong. Or you're
we're not cheap. Like, we don't even try to be cheap.
Yeah. And it's just like, or clients, you bring their dogs home from a board and train and the dog is on point and doing exactly what it needs to do. But you still need those tools because the board and train is only 2 to 3 weeks. That is a really good foundation. And working with the dogs multiple times a day, working them everywhere we can, it gives them a good foundation, but you still have to follow through with what we did. It's not like, oh, they come home and it's like, they're just a robot. It's a living, breathing, thinking animal. And they just come home and they take the collars off. And they're like, why isn't my dog listening to me? Why is it jumping on the couch? I'm like, because you literally just told it could by taking its collars off and not following through with anything I said.
Right. And like the example I use for a lot of people is that retired guide dogs, and everyone pretty much agrees that a guide dog is a well-trained dog for the most part. So retired guide dogs, when they leave, the blind person's home and they go to a retirement home, and they're going to live out the rest of their life just a little more comfortably with less demands. The Guide Dog Foundation recommends that the dog is created for 4 to 6 months, and very few people do that. But the reason for that is they want to build the structure for that dog to say that the rules you had, now it's not just a free-for-all.
Yes.
And if it's recommended to do that for a 7, 8, 9-year-old guide dog, imagine a 6-month-old to 18-month-old dog was been through a 3-week program. Like, you have to follow through. You just have to.
Yeah, it's like, and it's like us. Like, I was a straight A student in math. Trigonometry was like my favorite thing.
That makes one of us. That makes one of us.
Now, hand me a book and tell me to do a problem. I'm going to be like, what the hell is this? How do I do this?
All training is perishable. Absolutely.
Exactly. And your dogs are also like, you got to think of them as mini toddlers. If they know that they can get away with things with you, they're going to do it. They're just going to do it because they know that they can. But if you follow through with like what we teach you, then your dog won't do that. Your dog will just fall in place.
What's the magic time frame that you find? I know my answer. What's the magic time frame you find? So you bring the dog home, and we often get calls. The dog is great for the first X amount of days, and then what would you say that happens?
It's usually within like 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3. I find you have a 3-day window for most dogs of things going beautifully. Like you don't need to hit the button.
Yeah. I schedule my follow-up lesson with them. So I'll do my bring home lesson and then I'll schedule my follow-up lesson within a week of that. I was always mandatory. Like, we have to do our follow-up lesson in a week. Okay, unless the person kept blowing me off. If they started blowing me off, like, we'd schedule, they'd be like, oh, I'm sick. Oh, my daughter's sick. Oh, I have to tie my shoe. I can't do it. I'll be like, okay, well then call me when you're ready. And that's usually where I find issues. But my other clients where I do the mandatory follow-up in a week, maybe give or take a couple days, they usually do great.
Yeah, because they get less time. The dogs get less time messing around on the owners. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with that 100%. Because I find that 3 days they have to do very very little, and then almost little by little it starts degrading because they're not taking it seriously. They're not taking it seriously. The dog's like, these guys are a joke. The
Yeah.
rules are there, and I'm back home. There's no rules.
Yeah. And they know too. They know if their owners are going to be like, are going to follow through with what we taught them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
that's forward. Like you have to follow through with what we taught them. No, you're not doing like mandatory like training sessions daily. You're doing informal training, but you still have to follow through. If you ask your dog to do something, you got to make sure they do it. Otherwise, they're going to be like, "Oh, look at this chump."
yeah, absolutely. So, do you have speaking of mandatory training?
Mm-hmm.
What's your recommendation for the dog goes home? There's two. All right, so let me start with this. There's two kinds of training for anyone who doesn't know this. What we consider formal training and casual training. Formal training or informal.
Mm-hmm.
Formal training is you go outside, you put the leash on, everything comes, sit, stay, or
Mm-hmm.
place, run through the commands.
Yeah.
Casual training or informal training, as Nicholle says, is as it pops up in the house, dogs barking at a dog going by, somebody comes to the door, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
All of that. So do you have a specific formula that you recommend to your clients to practice formal versus informal?
So I do more formal training with my clients when I'm doing in-homes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I gradually lead them to informal training. I can give them like if they ask for that when it's a board and training, they come home, I'll show them like little routines that they can do with the dog. But most of the time, like the dogs, I personally feel like they're good enough to where they can just do the informal or casual training.
Okay.
But I tell them, I'm like when they come home, I'll be like, put your dog on place, watch a 30-minute show, an hour show, and just have your dog sitting on place. And then I'm like, you can even switch it up to like, because they're like, oh, can my dog cuddle on the couch with me? Yeah, your dog can. But
Sure.
do one show where your dog is laying on its bed. The next show, it can be snuggling on the couch with you. I'm like, because we all binge Netflix shows. Like, we all do.
Right. Right.
So, like, when you're having a binge session, switch it up with your dog and just make sure. Or if it's like a show you're not really into, but you're kind of casually viewing, just make your dog sit on place the whole time.
Right.
Or when you're cooking dinner, like you can pay attention to cooking and your dog at the same time. It's humanly possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some people are like, how am I going to cook and watch my dog? I'm like, you can do it.
Right. But
Just keep your dog in place. It could be your place can even be in the kitchen with you, but you don't want to have your dog free getting into something or under your feet while you're cooking.
sure. Sure.
So that's
Nice.
usually what I do I guess it's kind of a formal way of training of making the dog stay on place, but
Okay.
it helps. And a lot of my clients, I'll get like down the road, like 6 months, a year, even sometimes 2 or 3 years down the road, they'll text me. They're like, look they're still doing great.
That's awesome.
Look at my dog sitting on place in my driveway while I bring my groceries in. And they're like super happy. Cause that's really what a lot of clients want is just that control over their dog. So they're not darting out of the house or running
Right.
up to everybody.
Yeah. So my recommendations are what I normally do is I found that I tell them 10 minutes a day,
Mm-hmm.
3 times a week.
Okay.
And a formal training. Go out, come sit. I
Yeah.
find it transfers very well, knowing that it might be once or twice a week. So I'm
Yeah.
saying 3 to 4 times, knowing it's probably once or twice
Yeah.
because people have lives and they're busy. And then if you say it to a CrossFitter, they're going to practice 10 minutes a day, 4 times a day, and you have to ease them off the dog because they're out of their minds. The training, it doesn't matter if it's them, the dog, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, but I find that and then the casual training is as it pops up. I find that works very very well. I like the sitting on the couch. My recommendation isn't that because my head doesn't go to watching TV at night because I don't always do that.
Yeah.
But although since the divorce, I'm watching more TV than I ever have. I have to admit that. But the kids go to bed. It's now 9:30 at night. The kids are in bed, and I'm by myself. I'm not boohooing, but I'm by myself. And sometimes at that point in the night, I've done my reading. I've done my business stuff. I've done my Google ads. I've looked at everything. My brain's just I can't comprehend. I just need to start shutting down. I can't comprehend another thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sit down, pop on the couch, and just a half an hour to an hour of TV, and then I can't even make a movie, and then I'm out. Usually Billions, or so. I try to watch something like that, and then I'm out for the night. But yeah, I think those recommendations work really really well.
Yeah.
So whatchamacallit?
I'm more strict with the formal training with my in-home clients.
You have to be.
Because I'm not there. And the hard part about in-home clients is we know the timing of everything and they don't. Like,
Yes.
we know exactly
what's
when to reward or when to stop pressing the button or all of that. And I've had clients to where even when the dog's already on place, they're like reminding the dog and pressing the button. Like, place. And
no.
like, no, the dog's already there. Stop doing that. Give him a treat, if anything.
Right.
Like, stop pressing the button.
I think so the difference, what's the difference? What's your explanation for the difference between in-home training and board and train?
The difference?
Yeah.
In-home training is what I explain to the clients when I'm talking to a client is us pretty much coaching you through it, opposed to us doing all the heavy lifting and then you just follow through with it.
Sure. So I think my explanation often when I'm talking to somebody, I say, because when somebody's really conflicted, because there are people you talk to, they're like, I don't want my dog out of my sight. I don't want this. I'm going to practice. I'll do this and that all the time. In-home training. Other people like, I want to do in-home training, but my kids have soccer and we have a busy schedule and this and that. Well, you need the board and train because it's not going to work.
Because you need that structure and you need that consistency.
Right. So my explanation is, it's like building the foundation of a house. So if you're going to practice religiously, the in-home works beautifully as long as you can take direction, and a lot of people can. But if you are going to half-ass the training, you're busy as hell, you have too much to do. The best foundation is the board and training. Our best story for that is we had a woman with a golden retriever, and she called us back then. We had the Farmingdale kennel, and that's when. So I went to pick up the dog, and nicest woman in the world. Her husband was there, kids were there. They were getting ready to go on vacation the following day. So she comes in, I meet the dog, we're talking, blah, blah, blah. And it was like 40 minutes of, all right, I got to go. But she kept talking because she was just so nice, and she don't be rude. So it was a long, long conversation about everything under the sun. And then, so we board and train the dog. They come back from vacation. I go to drop the dog off. She literally cracks the door open, grabs the dog with a leash, hands me a check, closes the door, comes back 10 seconds later, hands the leash out the door, and shuts the door. I was like, that was weird.
That's awkward.
So, like, if somebody's a shut-in, you go, all right, I get it. But this person went from talking my ear off to, like, just, here's the dog, thank you, here's a check, shut the door. So she called.
What?
She called like 6 months or a year later. It was the weirdest thing in the world. She called like 6 months or a year later. And I think it was close to a year.
Yeah.
And one of my other trainers had picked up the phone, and they're like, you did remember this dog? I'm like, yeah, Massapequa? She goes, yeah. She goes, you never did a follow-up lesson? I'm like, yeah, they never returned a call. So I got on the phone with her. Yeah. And I said, can I ask you a question? What the hell happened? Just like, what? Like, you talked my ear off when we met, and you handed me a check and took the dog through a door and closed it. What the hell happened? And she said, when you picked up the dog, we were going on a family vacation. I went, right. You were going wherever, Florida. She said, when I came back, I was in the middle of a divorce and I never saw it coming.
Oh.
I was like, oh my God, that's so horrible. Like, I felt so bad for her. She's like,
yeah.
She goes, I think I need to do a refresher. I'm like, so what have you done with the dog? She goes, nothing. Never put the collar on the dog, never did any training. I'm like, well, can you do me a favor? Can you come to group class? So is it possible for you to come to group class? I'd like to assess the dog in a group environment.
Yeah.
And she went, sure. I said, you're entitled to group class anyway. Just come on down. We'll do a whatever. She was like, I really think I need a refresher because I didn't do anything. So let's just come on down. So she came to class. And we had probably about 25, 30 people in class that day and a few other trainers.
Yeah.
So I was able to take the dog. And in about 7 minutes, the dog was listening. And in 10, I unclipped the leash in front of 25 or 30 other dogs. was healing the dog in and out of things and out of people, place. The dog remembered everything. I said, and she couldn't believe it. I said, the good thing is, I'm like that since you did nothing, you didn't do anything wrong. I said, the dog remembers everything. It just, we needed to speak the language. We taught a language, as we said earlier. We taught a language. As soon as we started speaking the language, the dog went, I remember that.
Yep.
And then everything changed. And the dog went back to it. And I said, so you don't need a penny. You don't need to spend a penny. You already paid us. Let's do 2 private lessons. They're included. This group class. She was thrilled to death and had the dog she wanted.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of it is just the owners following through once the dogs come home, or once even just with the in-home lessons. And it's like, it's the follow through. And I sometimes, when I get people that are like wishy-washy on it, or like, I already know that I'm kind of losing the sale, because it is a sale. Like, you have to sell yourself, so that way people want to train their dog with you. But when I know they're listening to it, or if it's a price thing or something, I'm like, listen, I'm like, if this is a lot of money for you, I'm like, unless you're going to follow through and you're going to be 100% on it, then don't do it.
Right.
With some people, not, but like that's the thing, is like, because I don't want you getting mad at me because you spent all this money on this, and then it's my fault because you didn't follow through with it. So like, some people, I'll be like, you really have to follow through with this.
Sure. And I think our life program helps out.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Likewise. God, you guys.
Like those difficult people that you're talking to, where they're coming up with every excuse of why they shouldn't do it. I'll be like to them, I'm like, listen, I'll just get down to the nitty gritty. I'm like, listen, if you train your dog with us, you train your dog with me, whatever, I'm going to give you what you want. But if you're not going to follow through with it when it comes home, then don't do it.
Sure.
You're not going to get a remote control dog. It's just not going to happen.
No. I think I have another story about that for another day, from when I had to deliver a dog to France. So we'll talk about that in another episode. Yeah. So I delivered a dog to France, and we'll go into that. And it's exactly what you said. And it was for a very famous person and their husband. And it was, it's a pretty good story, and it actually goes exactly to your point.
I'll write that down so we can remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so, but I don't know. So I think this is I think this is a good first introduction. I hope people like it. Yeah. What do you think?
Recording.
Yeah, we're still recording. No, we're definitely still recording. And but I think, this is how it's going. We're going to talk in real life to people, just the same way we do a group class. Yeah. And anything else you want to cover before we wrap it up? Because we're 28 minutes in.
We're only 28 minutes in.
Yeah. It's, our conversations go fast. They always do.
Yeah, they do. Not right now, I don't think. Is there anything that you want to cover? Anything else you want to talk about?
I think we're good. I think we're definitely good.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah. Thank you. It was a good first. I think this one we keep. This is a good run.
Yeah, I think this is good. Yeah.
And we have to figure out how to get this up. But that'll be, so step 1, we just did this, and step 2, we'll figure out how to get it up and running.
Welcome to our journey of learning how to do a podcast. We're really excited that everybody's here.
Thank you for joining us. And all right, until next time.
I will talk to you later.
All right, bye-bye.